I never read books before. I never read books when I was younger, but reading books has changed my life. I was not a reader when I was younger. I was a gym rat. I wanted to go outside. I wanted to play. Books have even allowed me to do those other things that I enjoy doing outside of the pages even more. So welcome to another episode of Beyond the Painted Lines. I'm your host, Keith Datu. In today's episode, I got to share how reading books has changed my life. So why read books? Some people naturally just gravitate towards books, right? Some people grew up as readers of childhood books or, history books, poetry books, right? Whatever that may be, novels, literature, and a lot of people, they don't start reading until they're about my age, mid to late 20s, and so on. For me, it's self-development. Self-development books have shaped me so tremendously. Now, don't get me wrong. You can read a million self-development books, but if you don't take action for what you've read, for what you've consumed, then I would argue it is a waste of time. But in my case, it has not been. In the past 2 years, I'm pushing, I want to say 50 to 60 books, and that's not even a lot. But now I consider myself a reader, even a bookworm. So instead of paying the same amount for a video game when I was younger, I would use that same money now at this age, and I go to the bookstore. Over here we have Fully Booked in the Philippines. It's probably my go-to bookstore here. Or back in the States, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. That's where I'm going to put my time, money, and investment into rather than playing video games. And there's nothing wrong with video games. Right now, what I feel is right for my journey, where I'm at in my life, is reading books. I think I first started reading books when, I'm going to be honest, I've read more books now than I have my entire high school and college and graduate college degree. Graduate college was more like peer-reviewed articles, whatever. But I think I've only thoroughly read like one or two books in high school. That sounds terrible as someone who graduated high school with AP literature. Oh boy. Even in college. I think in college is when I first started to read self-help books. I think the first book I picked up was You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. And the second book I've ever read for self-development purposes was Relentless by Tim Grover. And I started those because I started 75 Hard. I will make an entire different episode talking about my 75 Hard experience. But for now, those are the first two books that I picked up. And ever since then, I haven't looked back. I've actually read those first two books multiple times, actually. And I do find reading the same book helpful too, because one, it reminds you what you've read. I also take notes, right? This is my second or third. I think this is my third composition book. I'm an active reader. So I don't use a highlighter anymore. I did when I first started, but I underline in my books now, and I take notes on like favorite quotes that I've read or my thoughts about what is being said. What I want to share today is, if you're not interested in reading books, you are not fully invested or interested in getting yourself better. I'll even vouch for going the audiobook route. I think there's a lot of power and discipline to reading a physical copy of a book. I also do audiobooks too on my commutes. Believe it or not, I've even worked out listening to an audiobook. It's not my favorite thing to do, but when you're so invested into a topic, when you want to learn about something, I think that's key as well to your adherence and wanting to continue on with that book. There's nothing wrong with starting a book if it sucks or you don't like it. Close it, find a new one. Don't force yourself to read something you don't want to read. It should be something that you want to learn about, something that you want to gain from. What are you consuming, right? When we watch TV, for example, or a movie, we're not going to finish a 10 season TV series if the first season sucks or the second season sucks. The Office is an exception. What I want you to take away is that finding the right book for you is also important. And there's a gazillion books out there. So physical books, audiobooks, however that may be on, Spotify or Audible. For physical books, it could be paper, it could be Kindle, it could be your iPad, it could be your laptop, however that may be, however that looks for you. I thoroughly encourage it. Reading self-development books, right? It's about having or developing a growth mindset as well. Here's a note that I wrote down that I wanted to share, right? I wanted to talk about the value of exchange. So I have a quote from The Art of Impossible by Steven Kotler. Actually, I have that one with me. Okay. This one. The Art of Impossible, a Peak Performance Primer by Steven Kotler. I bought this book just maybe 6 months ago here in the Philippines at Fully Booked. I really wish I had all my books with me because I do like to go back into other books that I've already read or reread like some of my favorite books that help me stay on track, stay focused on the goals that I'm trying to accomplish. I have a quote written down in my notes to share on this podcast today. And he says, a 5-hour book gets you 15 years worth of someone's life. So what he's trying to say is that what you can gain in 5 hours by reading a book, for example, this took him not 15 years to write, but 15 years worth of experience, knowledge and observation, science, education, 15 years worth of his life. We can compress that into just 5 hours. We can learn everything that he wants us to learn from his research, his peer-reviewed journals, his life experiences, his coaching, his interaction with other athletes and peak performers. We can learn all of that in 5 hours when it's taken him 15 years to put that together for us. How could we not invest 5 hours and gain 15 years worth of knowledge from this guy? I also want to say it is important to know the author as well, right? What is the author's credentials? Is this author trustworthy? Do other people like his work? What are his reviews? Those are things too before you take their knowledge to heart, right, as well. But I just think that's so powerful. I literally just compressed 15 years of someone's life to just 5 hours of reading a book. I've known people who finished a book in like an hour before. I'm just like, how did you do that? Did you even absorb anything in there? And I know people who take weeks to finish a book as well. And that's okay, read at your pace. So I also have one more quote from that book as well. And Steven says, books pay performance dividends. Studies find that they improve long-term concentration, reduce stress, and stave off cognitive decline. Reading has also been shown to improve empathy, sleep, and intelligence. There's a plethora of reasons to start reading books. The biggest investment you can make is in yourself, in your health, in your mind, in your body. That's my 2 cents. You can never be sufficient in what you know, and the world is always changing. CEOs, high performers, successful people with track records, something that they have in common is that they read. They figure out what works and what doesn't work. So I'm always trying to keep learning, keep improving myself, right? How can I emulate what other successful people do? All right, so I also wanted to share my top 5 favorite books that I've read so far in my life, as far as self-development goes. And this list was hard for me to make because there are so many good books that I've dabbled into, and I couldn't really just pick 5, but I think I'll just start with 5 for this episode that I definitely think everybody should read. The first one is The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. That book right there was my favorite book that I read during my 75 hard journey. So the next one, I grouped them together. I know they're 2 different books, but the same author. I got to put them together. Relentless and Winning by Tim Grover. Those 2 are must reads, especially for high performance athletes. Another book that really speaks about quality of life for me is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Calanthe. You know what? I'm going to pair that to, I actually didn't write this one down, but I can see it on my shelf. Another book kind of in that same genre about It's a autobiography, A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Calanthe. That one to me really speaks volumes about living every single day to your fullest, because the clock is ticking on your life. The next one I spoke about in another episode. I think it was my first episode, but The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And if we're talking about growth and trying to be better every single day, that's another great book to get you started. Okay, The War of Art. I pulled this one off my shelf as well. This one's interesting because it's super easy to read, right? Like some pages are literally like a 1 page worth of what to read in there. I'm a big fan because he talks about, especially someone who am always wondering what to do next with my life, how to maximize my life, or how to be creative, whether I'm making music or writing or investing, right? The War of Art describes how resistance dramatically impacts your decision making. And resistance can mean a lot of things. But when we need to work, when we need to complete a task, there's always resistance. Something's always like wanting to hold you back or demotivate you. And that book really speaks about how to push through that. An honorable mention that I have on here is The Richest Man in Babylon, or Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's a similar book, in my opinion, as well, just to get your finances right and like your first steps in learning financial literacy. All right. I also, for those audiobookers out there, I also listed my top 5 favorite audiobooks that I've read this past year or two as well. The first one, I also grouped these two together because they're both so good, but both by David Goggins, right? Can't Hurt Me and Never Finished. I also like that because if you use Audible to listen, he actually has like a little interview in between the chapters or within the chapter as well. So it's not just the book. You can also listen to him share like in greater detail how the story really happened as well. That is another one that will help you develop your mindset, enhance your mindset towards what it takes to achieve anything. All right, this next audiobook, don't get it twisted. It's not just for colored people, but Black Privilege, Opportunity Comes to Those Who Create It by Charlemagne the God. It's a little vulgar. There's a lot of there's profanity and other things that he talks about in there, but I love his stories on how to hustle and how to get to places that you didn't know were possible. I like that he speaks about how when you hustle, opportunities open for you, right? You aren't just lucky, right? You create luck. And that's written in a ton of books, a ton of speakers say that, but he gives his own personal life experiences on how that is possible. Another book, this one's more religious, but it's by Craig Rochelle, and it's called Winning the War in Your Mind. And I like that he touches upon like the spiritual side of things, right? I am a Christian, and so he likes to bring biblical examples and also examples from our current world. The next one I got written, as far as audiobooks go, I actually read 2 of his other books physically, but as far as audiobooks go, I have Mastery and The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. So Mastery is it's obviously about mastering your craft. Super in-depth. And then The Art of Seduction, I would say The Art of Seduction is not just about seduction, right? But also how to speak and conversate with people. The next one I have written as an audiobook is Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. And it's more of a autobiography type, right? He's speaking about his own life. And I love that he uses his own narration as well. I'm a big fan of his, actually. Like, I like his voice. But I love the stories that he shares and how you can apply what he's learned and his experiences to your own life in a very realistic and kind of down to earth way. Down to earth for being Matthew McConaughey, I guess. An honorable mention, I have Fitness Confidential by Vinnie Tortorich. That book, it spoke to me a lot because I was working in the same field as him. I was working in the same realm of the fitness industry, right? He was working with celebrities and stuff in Los Angeles, and I was doing the same about the time I was listening to his book as well. But more than just what he does for a living, I love that he gives you knowledge about how to take care of your body and also how to properly deliver when other people expect so much out of you. And also it's just an autobiography of his amazing life as well. Then again, there's tons of books that I've read or listened to that I haven't mentioned today. Maybe I'll make another part 2 about other books that you should definitely dive into. But just for starters, if you would like to start reading, those are some books that I recommend you dabble into, whether they're physical, off a Kindle, or you're listening to them, audiobooks. Go on a walk, listen to a book on your drive, your commute, whatever that is. I highly recommend it. For example, if you go walk or treadmill, bike, whatever, it's like you're double dipping, right? You're gaining knowledge and you're exercising. It's a win-win. There's a lot of answers that I needed that I didn't know I had the questions to. I think that's also eye-opening. You know, it allows you to acknowledge that there's so much for you to, there are so many ways to level up your career, your life, in relationships, business, your career, your love life, your networking, how you do things. Like you'll find answers that you really didn't know you needed to hear. So I encourage you, right, to give your value to others by gifting books. Maybe it's not the actual physical copy, but I do think you should share the knowledge that you do gain from other people. That's our job. It's our mission. You know, we want to help other people out. I'm going to go as far as saying that I would not be a professional athlete if I didn't evolve into a bookworm. What do books have to do with me playing basketball? A lot, actually. Here's why. What do books have to do with me being a basketball player? On the surface, nothing really. Mentally, mindset, growth, I hung it up. I quit basketball. Before COVID hit, I had knee surgery. By the time I was ready to play again, COVID happened. Everything shut down. I didn't play basketball for a full 2 years. Nothing. Not even rec league. I think I went to the park just a couple times just to shoot, just to do nothing. I hung it up. I did 75 hard, decided to read. Reading changed my mind about everything. And I realized what I'm capable of doing. And that if I wanted something bad enough, I could go get it, right? Granted, I'm talking about being a professional athlete. Yes, it also helps that I'm 6'7", damn near 6'8", half Filipino to play in the PBA. Yes, but in general terms speaking, books taught me that if you want something bad enough, regardless of your situation, you can go get it. I just use my example of having knee surgery that took me 18 months to fully recover from, and then finally being ready to play, and then took another 2 years off. I didn't even work on my knee for a whole year after I was ready to play. COVID happened. What am I supposed to do? I went into the workforce, started working. Books just changed my mind about everything. My first phone call after COVID, hey, do you want to come to the Philippines? No, I'm good. I stopped playing. Thank you, though. Second phone call, change your mind yet? Interesting. I could probably play again, but you know what? There's so much work that I have to put into that. I'm just going to keep working in the United States. Third phone call, maybe maybe 20 books in at this point. Third phone call. You want to play ball? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I actually want to go back and check how many books in I was by the time I got that third phone call. But I credit books. I credit my 75 hard program. Yeah. Read. Like just directly reading. It's words on a page. But continue to read. You don't know where your mindset will take you. You don't know where you're going to go in life. Read. I'm telling you. You're hearing it firsthand. From someone who didn't read, someone who didn't want to read, whose mom had to force him to read his own homework to get his schoolwork done growing up. Now I can't put the books down. If you're a reader, or if there's a book you've recently just read, please share. Add it in the comments. Shoot me a DM message. I'd love to know. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. I'd love to, maybe start a book club or something. You can also add me. I use an app called Goodreads. It shows, it's like a social media platform in a way. If you follow me on Goodreads, we can like friend request on Goodreads, and it'll show books that I've read, books that I'm currently reading, and books that are like on my like wish list that I want to read as well. I think you can also message and like recommend books to other people. You could see book reviews, rate them, and you can see all the books that I've dabbled into. So thank you so much for listening to another episode of Beyond the Painted Lines, right? I'm Keith Datu. Please share the show. I want to help as many people as I can, and I would like to share my experiences. I'd like to continue giving value. I'd love to continue sharing my purpose, what I think my purpose is right now, right? We talk about that. It's always evolving. It's always changing. So I encourage you to share the show, and I hope that I provided more value to you today. All right. So thank you. This is your host, Keith Datu. Thank you for watching Beyond the Painted Lines.